October 13, 1942, Henderson Field, Guadalcanal. Sergeant Major Ichiro Yamamoto of the 164th Infantry Regiment crouched in the muddy foxhole, checking his Type 38 Arisaka rifle for the third time that morning. The veteran of the China campaign ran his weathered fingers along the bolt mechanism, a design that had served Japanese infantry faithfully since 1905. Through the jungle mist, he could hear American voices growing closer, the first army unit to reinforce the Marines on this hellish island. "Stupid Americans," Yamamoto whispered to his squad leader, Corporal Kenji Suzuki, as they observed the approaching soldiers through field glasses. "Look at their heavy rifles. Semi-automatic weapons waste ammunition and jam in jungle conditions. Our Arisaka is perfect. Simple, reliable, accurate. One shot, one kill. Discipline beats machinery." What Sergeant Major Yamamoto didn't know, what none of the Japanese soldiers preparing for another banzai charge could have imagined, was that those heavy rifles would systematically destroy traditional infantry tactics that had dominated Asian battlefields for 40 years. The M1 Garand, weighing 9.5 pounds loaded, would prove that sustained firepower could obliterate even the most fanatical infantry charges, transforming ground combat from individual marksmanship duels into industrial-scale killing. Within 6 hours, Yamamoto's perfectly trained regiment would be shattered by a firepower demonstration that redefined infantry warfare. The mathematics of destruction were already loaded in those 8-round en-bloc clips, 50 rounds per minute, sustained fire, versus 15 rounds per minute from bolt-action rifles, a 3.3.1 firepower advantage that made traditional tactics suicidal. The Japanese confidence in their small arms wasn't misplaced hubris. It was earned through 40 years of battlefield success across Asia. The Type 38 Arisaka, adopted in 1905, had proven itself in the Russo-Japanese War, the conquest of Manchuria, and the invasion of China. Its 6.5mm cartridge provided flat trajectory and minimal recoil, allowing rapid bolt manipulation by trained infantry. The rifle's length of 50.25 inches gave it reach advantage in bayonet fighting, while its weight of 8.5 pounds made it manageable for smaller-statured soldiers. Captain Masao Ikeda, weapons instructor at the Imperial Army Infantry School, had codified Japanese small arms doctrine in training manuals that emphasized precision over volume. The Type 38 represents perfection in infantry weapons design. Each shot must find its target through superior marksmanship and fire discipline. American semi-automatic rifles encourage wasteful ammunition expenditure and reduced accuracy. Quality defeats quantity in infantry combat. The bolt-action design philosophy reflected broader Japanese military thinking that emphasized individual warrior skill over mechanical advantage. Trained Japanese infantry could achieve 15 to 20 aimed rounds per minute with the Arisaka, rates that seemed adequate for battlefield requirements. The rifle's reliability in extreme conditions had been proven through decades of service in China's dust, Siberia's cold, and Southeast Asia's humidity. More importantly, Japanese doctrine assumed that most infantry engagements would be decided by bayonet charges, where rifle weight and length provided decisive advantages. The Type 38's 15.75-inch bayonet, combined with the rifle's length, gave Japanese soldiers a total reach of 66 inches, sufficient to penetrate enemy positions before opponents could reload bolt-action rifles. Lieutenant Colonel Renya Mutaguchi, tactical instructor at the Army War College, had studied American small arms through captured specimens and intelligence reports. His assessment, filed with Imperial General Headquarters in early 1942, dismissed semi-automatic rifles as typical American over-engineering. Semi-automatic mechanisms multiply potential failure points while encouraging undisciplined fire. American soldiers lack the fire control necessary for effective use of such weapons. Our superior training and simpler equipment will prevail through battlefield application. The intelligence seemed to support Japanese confidence. Early encounters with American forces in the Philippines had shown Marines and Army units armed with various weapons, Springfield rifles, Thompson submachine guns, and limited numbers of experimental semi-automatic rifles. Japanese forces consistently achieved tactical victories through superior unit cohesion and aggressive assault tactics that overwhelmed American defensive positions. But hidden in American factories was a revolution in small arms, production that would arm every U.S. infantryman with firepower previously available only to machine gun crews. The M1 Garand, designed by John Cantius Garand at Springfield Armory, represented 8 years of development aimed at providing individual soldiers with sustained automatic fire capabilities without sacrificing accuracy or reliability. The technical specifications told a story of systematic American superiority. The Garand's 3006 cartridge delivered 2,800 foot-pounds of muzzle energy compared to the Arisaka's 1,840 foot-pounds, a 52% advantage in stopping power. The heavier American bullet penetrated cover that stopped Japanese rounds, while its trajectory remained flat enough for accurate fire to 500 yards. More significantly, the Garand's gas-operated action allowed rapid follow-up shots without manual bolt manipulation. Where Japanese infantry required 3 to 4 seconds between aimed shots, American soldiers could fire 8 rounds in 8 to 10 seconds with comparable accuracy. The mathematical advantage was overwhelming. An 8-man American squad could deliver 320 rounds per minute compared to 120 rounds from an equivalent Japanese unit. The ammunition feeding system represented another crucial advantage. The Garand's 8-round en-bloc clips allowed rapid reloading in 2 to 3 seconds compared to single cartridge loading for bolt-action rifles requiring 15-20 seconds for complete magazine replenishment. American soldiers could maintain sustained fire, while Japanese infantry became vulnerable during lengthy reloading processes. Master Sergeant John Basilone, who would later receive the Medal of Honor at Guadalcanal, had trained new Marine recruits on the M1 Garand at Camp Pendleton. The Garand changes everything about infantry combat. Instead of aimed shots at individual targets, you can suppress entire enemy positions with sustained fire. The psychological effect is devastating. Enemy soldiers can't advance under continuous semi-automatic fire from multiple riflemen. The production capacity supporting M1 Garand deployment demonstrated American industrial superiority that Japanese planners couldn't comprehend. Springfield Armory, Winchester, Harrington and Richardson, and International Harvester were producing 600,000 Garands annually by 1942, with output increasing monthly. Each rifle required 47 precision-machined components assembled to tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch. Yet American workers maintained quality standards while achieving production rates impossible under traditional manufacturing methods. By contrast, Japanese small arms production struggled to meet replacement requirements for existing forces. The Kokura arsenal produced approximately 25,000 Type 38 rifles annually, while Nagoya Arsenal added another 15,000. Total Japanese rifle production couldn't match the output of a single American facility. Yet Japanese forces faced a global war requiring small arms for millions of soldiers. The ammunition production disparity was equally staggering. American cartridge plants produced 50 million rounds of 30-06 ammunition monthly, while Japanese facilities manufactured 20 million rounds of 6.5mm ammunition. Each American infantryman carried 80 rounds into combat compared to 60 rounds for Japanese soldiers. Yet American soldiers could expend their ammunition load in 2 minutes, while Japanese infantry required 4 minutes for equivalent expenditure. Colonel Edwin Harding, commanding the 32nd Infantry Division preparing for deployment to New Guinea, observed M1 Garand training with professional satisfaction. Our soldiers possess firepower advantages that make traditional infantry tactics obsolete. Japanese banzai charges will meet sustained semi-automatic fire from multiple rifles. Their individual marksmanship skills become irrelevant when facing volume fire that suppresses movement and destroys unit cohesion. The first M1 Garands reached Pacific Theater units in August 1942, just as Japanese forces were preparing decisive offensives aimed at eliminating American footholds in the Solomon Islands. The 164th Infantry Regiment, fresh from training in the United States, carried 2,800 Garands when they landed at Henderson Field to reinforce Marine units that had been fighting with bolt-action Springfields and limited automatic weapons. What Japanese intelligence failed to detect was that this single regiment represented the vanguard of an entire army equipped with semi-automatic rifles. Behind them, 100,000 more Garands were crossing the Pacific each month, arming American forces with individual firepower that exceeded squad-level capabilities of most other armies. Though stage was set for the most dramatic transformation in infantry warfare since the introduction of magazine-fed rifles, Japanese soldiers who had dominated Asian battlefields through superior training, aggressive tactics, and reliable weapons were about to encounter an opponent that rendered their advantages meaningless through overwhelming firepower delivered at the individual soldier level. Sergeant Major Yamamoto's confidence in the perfect rifle would be shattered within hours by the distinctive ping of ejecting en-bloc clips and the devastating firepower of American infantry armed with weapons that could outshoot, outrange, and overwhelm any bolt-action rifle ever manufactured. The age of the bayonet was ending, replaced by the era of sustained fire. Japanese confidence in their small arms superiority wasn't theoretical. It was written in blood across 40 years of continuous warfare that had established the Empire of the Sun as Asia's dominant military power. From the muddy trenches of Port Arthur to the burning streets of Nanking, the Type 38 Arisaka rifle had proven itself the finest individual weapon in the hands of the world's most disciplined infantry. The mathematical proof lay in victory statistics that awed military observers worldwide. In the Russo-Japanese War of 1904-1905, Japanese infantry armed with Type 38 rifles had achieved something unprecedented, defeating a European power through superior small arms tactics and individual marksmanship. At the Battle of Mukden, 270,000 Japanese soldiers, armed primarily with Arisaka rifles, had routed 340,000 Russian troops, inflicting 89,000 casualties while suffering only 71,000. A tactical achievement that established Japanese infantry as the world's finest. The secret lay not just in the rifle's mechanical excellence, but in the systematic training philosophy that transformed every Japanese soldier into a precision marksman. Major General Akiyoshi Yamada, commandant of the Imperial Army Infantry School, had codified training standards that exceeded any military in the world. Every soldier will fire 300 practice rounds monthly until achieving 80% accuracy at 300 meters. Additional training includes rapid bolt manipulation exercises until 15 aimed shots per minute becomes automatic. Bayonet training continues until the soldier can execute fatal thrusts in less than 2 seconds. The Type 38's design reflected this emphasis on precision over volume. The 6.5mm Arisaka cartridge, smaller than European and American rounds, produced minimal recoil that allowed rapid follow-up shots while maintaining accuracy. The long barrel, 31.4 inches, provided excellent velocity and flat trajectory that made range estimation less critical for trained marksmen. Most importantly, the bolt action was glass smooth, allowing experienced infantry to cycle rapidly without losing sight picture. Lieutenant Colonel Masanobu Tsuji, operations officer for the Kwantung Army, had documented Japanese small-arms superiority during the conquest of Manchuria. Our infantry consistently outshoot Chinese forces armed with various rifles, including German Mausers and American weapons. The Type 38's accuracy advantage allows our soldiers to engage at ranges where enemy fire remains ineffective. Superior marksmanship training provides tactical advantages that mechanical innovations cannot match. The proof appeared repeatedly across Asian battlefields. During the Shanghai Incident of 1932, Japanese Marines armed with Type 38 rifles had defeated Chinese forces possessing numerical superiority and various automatic weapons. The engagement at Jabei demonstrated how disciplined rifle fire could overcome machine guns and submachine guns through superior accuracy and fire control. More impressive still was the Second Sino-Japanese War's opening phases, where Japanese infantry achieved victory ratios that seemed impossible by Western standards. At the Marco Polo Bridge, a single Japanese company armed with Type 38 rifles had held defensive positions against entire Chinese battalions equipped with mixed weaponry, including automatic rifles and light machine guns. The Japanese achieved this through systematic application of marksmanship principles that turned every soldier into a sniper. The individual weapons training was unmatched globally. Japanese infantry spent 18 months learning their rifle before entering combat, including 500 hours of marksmanship instruction, 200 hours of weapon maintenance, and 300 hours of bayonet fighting. By comparison, American soldiers received 40 hours of rifle training and 20 hours of bayonet instruction before deployment. Warrant Officer Kikuji Kawaguchi, instructor at the Kokura Arsenal's training facility, exemplified Japanese excellence. "I can place 10 rounds in a 6-inch circle at 400 meters using iron sights. This accuracy results from understanding the rifle completely, its balance point, trigger characteristics, recoil pattern, and ammunition performance. American soldiers treat rifles like tools. We regard them as extensions of our bodies." The Type 38's mechanical reliability had been proven under conditions that destroyed other rifles. In Manchuria's winter, where temperatures reached 40 degrees, the Arisaka continued functioning while Russian rifles jammed from frost. In China's summer heat and humidity, where metal expansion disabled European weapons, the Type 38 maintained accuracy and reliability. The rifle's simple mechanism, 5 major components compared to 15 in semi-automatic designs, reduced potential failure points while enabling field maintenance with minimal tools. Japanese tactics built around rifle supremacy had revolutionized infantry combat across Asia. The banzai charge, misunderstood by Western observers as fanatical suicide attacks, actually represented sophisticated tactical employment of rifle-bayonet combinations. Japanese infantry would advance under cover using individual marksmanship to suppress enemy positions, then execute coordinated bayonet assaults that overwhelmed demoralized defenders. Colonel Kotoku Sato, tactical instructor at the Army War College, had studied Western infantry methods and found them wanting. European and American forces rely on mechanical firepower, machine guns, automatic rifles, artillery support. This creates dependency on ammunition supply and mechanical reliability. Our philosophy emphasizes human factors, training, discipline, and spiritual strength. The Type 38 rifle channels these qualities into battlefield effectiveness. The bayonet component was equally important. The Type 38's 15.75-inch bayonet, combined with the rifle's 50.25-inch length, created a spear with 66-inch reach that dominated close combat. Japanese soldiers trained until bayonet thrusts became instinctive, practicing against multiple opponents until they could execute killing strokes faster than enemies could reload or retreat. Master Sergeant Rikichi Tsukioka, bayonet instructor at the Toyama Military Academy, had perfected techniques that made Japanese infantry supreme in close combat. The bayonet charge begins at 50 meters when enemy rifles are empty. We cover this distance in 12 seconds, while enemy soldiers require 15 seconds to reload bolt-action rifles. Our reach advantage and superior training guarantee victory in hand-to-hand combat. The psychological impact of Japanese rifle tactics had broken enemy morale across multiple campaigns. Chinese forces, despite numerical advantages and automatic weapons, consistently retreated when facing Japanese marksmanship and bayonet charges. British and Dutch forces in Southeast Asia had proven equally vulnerable to tactics that combined precision shooting with aggressive close assault. The industrial capacity supporting Japanese small arms seemed adequate for their strategic requirements. The Kokura Arsenal produced Type 38 rifles using traditional methods that emphasized hand-fitting and individual attention to detail. Each rifle required 200 hours of skilled machinist time, but the result was a weapon that could function reliably for decades with minimal maintenance. Japanese ammunition production employed similar quality over quantity philosophy. The 6.5-meter Arisaka cartridge was manufactured to tolerances that ensured consistent accuracy, with each round receiving individual inspection before acceptance. While Japanese facilities produced fewer cartridges than Western factories, their ammunition achieved accuracy standards that made every shot count. Captain Tadamichi Kuribayashi, who would later command Iwo Jima's defenses, observed Japanese small arms advantages During the 1937 Battle of Shanghai, our infantry achieved tactical superiority through individual excellence rather than mechanical advantage. Each soldier represents a weapon system trained to extract maximum effectiveness from proven equipment. Western forces depend on technology. We rely on human perfection. The Type 99 rifle, introduced in 1939, represented Japanese recognition of changing battlefield requirements while maintaining their core philosophy. Chambered for the more powerful 7.7mm cartridge, the Type 99 delivered increased stopping power while retaining the Arisaka's legendary accuracy and reliability. The new rifle incorporated minor improvements, adjustable sights, aircraft lead rings and monopod support, without compromising the simplicity that made Japanese weapons so dependable. By 1942, Japanese infantry possessed small arms and training that had proven superior to every opponent they had encountered. The Type 38 and Type 99 rifles, in the hands of soldiers who averaged 300 rounds of practice ammunition annually, had established Japanese forces as the world's finest infantry. Their tactical doctrine, built around individual marksmanship and bayonet fighting, had conquered territories from Manchuria to the Philippines. General Hideki Tojo, reviewing Japanese military capabilities in early 1942, expressed confidence that reflected 40 years of battlefield success. Our infantry, armed with rifle and bayonet, have defeated every enemy through superior training and tactics. American forces possess mechanical advantages, but warfare is decided by human factors: discipline, accuracy, and fighting spirit. Our soldiers excel in all these areas. What Japanese commanders couldn't foresee was that American industry was preparing to challenge their small arms supremacy, not through better individual weapons, but by arming every soldier with firepower that rendered individual marksmanship irrelevant. The age of precision was ending, replaced by the era of volume fire that would transform their proven tactics into suicidal obsolescence. October 13, 1942. 0347 hours, Henderson Field Perimeter, Guadalcanal. The morning mist clung to the jungle floor as Sergeant Major Ichiro Yamamoto led 200 men of the 164th Infantry Regiment through the undergrowth toward American positions. Intelligence indicated Marines had been reinforced by a single Army regiment, easy targets for a coordinated banzai charge that would sweep the Americans into the sea. "Remember your training," Yamamoto whispered to his squad leaders as they approached the American lines. "Wait for my signal, then advance rapidly with bayonets." The Americans panic under aggressive assault. Their heavy rifles jam in jungle conditions. What Yamamoto couldn't know was that crouched in foxholes 400 yards ahead, Private First Class Anthony Piccirilli of the 164th Infantry Regiment was checking his M1 Garand for the 4th time that morning. The 19-year-old from Brooklyn had arrived at Henderson Field just 2 days earlier, carrying one of 2,800 Garands that equipped the 1st Army unit to reinforce Guadalcanal. "Here they come," whispered Staff Sergeant James Mitchell, peering through the pre-dawn gloom as Japanese soldiers emerged from the jungle in a ragged skirmish line. "Remember what we practiced at Pendleton. Sustained fire, don't rush your shots." At 0352 hours, Yamamoto raised his sword and screamed, "Banzai!" 200 Japanese soldiers surged forward across the clearing, rifles with fixed bayonets gleaming in the morning light. For the first 30 seconds, the attack proceeded exactly as Japanese doctrine dictated, overwhelming momentum designed to close with the enemy before bolt-action rifles could be reloaded. Then something unprecedented happened. Instead of the scattered rifle fire Japanese troops expected from bolt-action Springfields, the American line erupted in sustained semi-automatic fire that sounded like multiple machine guns. Private Piccirilli squeezed his trigger repeatedly, watching his M1 Garands 30.06 rounds tear through the advancing Japanese. 8 shots in 10 seconds, followed by the distinctive ping of the ejecting en bloc clip, then another 8 rounds in the time it took a Japanese soldier to work his bolt twice. The mathematics of firepower were devastating. Where Japanese doctrine assumed Americans could fire 15 aimed rounds per minute with bolt-action rifles, the M1 Garand delivered 50 rounds per minute of sustained fire. The 200 attacking Japanese faced not 100 individual riflemen, but a wall of lead that put 5,000 rounds per minute into their ranks. Yamamoto, charging at the head of his regiment, watched in horror as his perfectly trained soldiers were cut down before covering half the distance to American positions. Men who had survived campaigns across China fell in windows under fire that never slackened, never paused for reloading. "Impossible," he gasped, diving for cover behind a fallen log as 30-06 bullets chewed the bark around him. "They cannot maintain such fire rates with rifles. These must be machine guns." But the fire was coming from individual soldiers, each armed with an M1 Garand that delivered stopping power Japanese infantry had never encountered. The 30-06 cartridge, generating 2,800 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, punched through bamboo palm trees, and hastily constructed cover that would have stopped the lighter 6.5 mm Arisaka rounds. Staff Sergeant Mitchell watched the charge dissolve under his squad's fire with professional satisfaction. "Cease fire, check your ammunition." Across the American line, soldiers began reloading their Garands with fresh 8-round clips, while Japanese survivors crawled back through the jungle, leaving 127 dead scattered across the clearing. American casualties, 2 wounded. The psychological shock was immediate and devastating. Corporal Kenji Suzuki, one of the few Japanese soldiers to survive the charge, recorded the encounter in his diary. "The Americans possessed automatic rifles that fire continuously without reloading. Our tactics are useless against such weapons. We cannot close with them before being destroyed by sustained fire." Lieutenant Colonel Edwin Harding, commanding the 164th Infantry Regiment, observed the action from his command post with grim satisfaction. "The M1 Garand has just revolutionized infantry warfare. Japanese banzai charges are obsolete when facing semi-automatic fire from trained soldiers." But this was just the opening engagement in a transformation that would reshape Pacific warfare. Over the following months, as more American units arrived equipped with M1 Garands, Japanese forces discovered that their proven tactics had become suicidal. The Battle of Bloody Ridge, 3 weeks later, demonstrated the Garand's capabilities on a larger scale. When 3,000 Japanese soldiers launched a coordinated night assault against Henderson Field's perimeter, they faced not just Marines with bolt-action Springfields, but Army reinforcements carrying M1 Garands. Captain John Rivers, commanding Company E of the 164th Infantry, positioned his 180 men along the ridge's eastern approach where Japanese doctrine called for breakthrough attacks. Each soldier carried 80 rounds of 30-06 ammunition in 10-round clips, enough firepower to sustain combat for extended periods. At 0200 hours, Japanese forces emerged from the jungle in waves, attempting to overwhelm American positions through numerical superiority and aggressive assault tactics. The first wave of 500 soldiers charged across open ground, expecting to close with defenders before bolt-action rifles could inflict decisive casualties. Instead, they met concentrated semi-automatic fire that stopped the attack cold. Rivers' company alone fired 40,400 rounds in 12 minutes, more ammunition than an entire Japanese battalion could expend in similar time. The sustained fire created killing zones that Japanese soldiers couldn't cross, regardless of their courage or tactical skill. Private Charles Wilson, firing his M1 Garand from a hastily constructed foxhole, described the engagement in a letter home. "The Japanese kept coming in waves, but our Garands cut them down faster than they could advance. Every time I heard that ping of an empty clip, I'd slam in another 8 rounds and keep firing. They never got closer than 50 yards. The ammunition consumption demonstrated American industrial superiority that Japanese planners hadn't anticipated. Each American soldier carried 80 rounds into combat, but supply lines delivered 200 additional rounds per man daily. By contrast, Japanese infantry carried 60 rounds with no assured resupply in jungle conditions. The psychological impact extended beyond tactical defeats to encompass complete demoralization of Japanese infantry tactics. Survivors of Guadalcanal encounters with M1 Garand-equipped Americans returned to their units with reports that shattered confidence in traditional doctrine. Major Keisuke Yamamoto, no relation to the Sergeant Major, operations officer for the 17th Army, compiled these reports with growing concern. American rifle fire has increased dramatically in volume and effectiveness. Our assault tactics cannot succeed against sustained semi-automatic fire. Individual marksmanship advantages become meaningless when facing continuous automatic fire from multiple rifles. The Japanese response was to request additional automatic weapons, light machine guns, submachine guns, and automatic rifles to match American firepower. But Japanese industry couldn't provide these weapons in sufficient quantities, and their tactical doctrine remained built around individual rifle excellence rather than sustained fire. More critically, Japanese soldiers discovered that their Type 38 Arisaka rifles, optimized for precision shooting, were inadequate for close-range firefights, where rapid follow-up shots determined survival. The bolt-action mechanism that enabled accurate long-range fire became a fatal disadvantage when facing semi-automatic weapons that could deliver multiple rounds while Japanese soldiers were working their bolts. Sergeant Takeshi Funatsu, a veteran of the China campaign who survived multiple encounters with American forces at Guadalcanal, described the transformation in his recovered diary. "Our rifles are superior for long-range precision shooting, but American semi-automatic weapons dominate at combat ranges under 200 meters. Their volume of fire suppresses our movement and prevents accurate return fire. We cannot employ our marksmanship advantages while under continuous semi-automatic fire." The M1 Garand's reliability in jungle conditions further shocked Japanese forces who had expected American mechanical complexity to fail under adverse conditions. Despite mud, humidity, and constant use, the Garands continued, functioning while Japanese rifles suffered from ammunition problems and maintenance difficulties in tropical environments. Technical Sergeant Robert Anderson, weapons maintenance specialist for the 164th Infantry, reported remarkable reliability statistics. "Our Garands are functioning flawlessly despite jungle conditions that would disable most weapons. Soldiers clean them with field-expedient materials and they continue operating. The gas system seems immune to fouling that would jam bolt-action rifles." By December 1942, Japanese tactical reports consistently mentioned American automatic rifles as critical factors in their defeats. What they didn't realize was that these weren't specialized automatic weapons, but standard-issue rifles that armed every American infantryman with firepower, previously available only to machine gun crews. The first contact had revealed a fundamental shift in infantry warfare that Japanese doctrine couldn't accommodate. Their proven tactics, built around individual rifle excellence and aggressive bayonet charges, had become obsolete when facing an opponent that could deliver sustained semi-automatic fire at the squad level. The age of precision marksmanship was ending, replaced by the era of volume fire that would transform every subsequent Pacific engagement. February 7, 1943, Tasafaronga Point, Guadalcanal. Colonel Kiyotake Kawaguchi watched through field glasses as the final Japanese transport disappeared over the horizon, evacuating 10,152 survivors from what had once been a 36,000-man army. The Tokyo Express runs were over. Guadalcanal belonged to America, and the M1 Garand had written the mathematical proof in casualty statistics that defied Japanese comprehension. "Report to headquarters," Kawaguchi dictated to his radio man, his voice hollow with defeat. "American semi-automatic rifles have rendered traditional infantry tactics obsolete. Recommend immediate development of equivalent weapons or tactical revision of all doctrine. Current methods result in systematic slaughter." What Colonel Kawaguchi couldn't know was that 8,000 miles away, American factories were producing 50,000 M1 Garands monthly, more semi-automatic rifles in a single month than Japan would manufacture during the entire war. The Springfield Armory, Winchester, Harrington and Richardson, and International Harvester had transformed the American armament industry into a Garand production machine that operated around the clock. The statistics emerging from Guadalcanal told a story of systematic firepower dominance that shocked even American commanders. In 6 months of jungle fighting, American forces equipped with M1 Garands had achieved kill ratios averaging 7.1 against Japanese infantry. More importantly, the traditional Japanese advantage in close-eye combat had been completely reversed. Lieutenant General Alexander Patch, commanding 14th Corps during the final Guadalcanal operations, documented the transformation in his after-action report. The M1 Garand has revolutionized infantry combat in ways that exceed our most optimistic projections. Japanese banzai charges, previously our most dangerous encounters, now result in one-sided massacres favoring American forces. Semi-automatic fire prevents enemy forces from closing to bayonet range. The weapon's psychological impact proved as devastating as its tactical effectiveness. Captured Japanese soldiers consistently reported that the sound of multiple Garands firing simultaneously created panic responses that traditional training couldn't overcome. The distinctive 8-shot rhythm, followed by the metallic ping of ejecting clips, became associated with inevitable death. Private First Class Yoshio Kodama, captured during the final Japanese withdrawal from Guadalcanal, described the psychological warfare in interrogation transcripts. "The American rifles fire without stopping. When we charge, the sound becomes like thunder that never ends. Our men lose courage before reaching enemy positions. The continuous fire prevents movement and destroys unit cohesion." The ammunition logistics supporting M1 Garand operations demonstrated American industrial capacity that Japanese planners had never anticipated. Each American infantry division consumed 4.2 million rounds of 30-06 ammunition monthly during active operations. Supply ships dedicated solely to ammunition delivery crossed the Pacific weekly, carrying enough cartridges to sustain fire rates that Japanese forces couldn't comprehend. By contrast, Japanese ammunition production struggled to meet basic requirements for bolt-action rifles. The Kokura arsenal produced 2 million rounds of 6.5mm ammunition monthly for all Japanese forces worldwide, less than a single American division consumed in sustained combat. This disparity forced Japanese commanders to restrict ammunition allocation to 10 rounds per soldier per day, severely limiting training and combat effectiveness. The technological gap was widening with each engagement. American soldiers carried 80 rounds into combat with assured resupply, enabling aggressive tactics that exploited the Garand's firepower advantages. Japanese infantry, limited to 60 rounds with uncertain resupply, were forced into defensive postures that negated their traditional tactical advantages. Master Sergeant Mitchell Page, Medal of Honor recipient, who had fought at Guadalcanal with both Springfield rifles and M1 Garands, observed the transformation. The Garand changes everything about infantry combat. Instead of careful aimed shots, you can suppress entire enemy positions with sustained fire. The psychological effect is overwhelming. Enemy soldiers can't advance under continuous semi-automatic fire. The Tarawa assault in November 1943 demonstrated M1 Garand effectiveness in different tactical conditions. The 2nd Marine Division, recently re-equipped with Garands, faced 4,136 Japanese defenders in prepared positions that previous doctrine suggested would require artillery and air support to neutralize. Instead, Marine infantry armed with M1 Garands systematically cleared Japanese bunkers through sustained fire that pinned defenders, while assault teams advanced with grenades and demolitions. The semi-automatic fire suppressed Japanese response long enough for Marines to close with fortified positions. Lieutenant Colonel David Shoup, commanding the 2nd Marine Regiment at Tarawa, reported unprecedented tactical flexibility. The M1 Garand allows individual squads to suppress enemy bunkers without machine gun support. Semi-automatic fire pins defenders while assault teams maneuver. Previous tactics required company-level coordination. Now, squad leaders can execute complex maneuvers independently. The production quality supporting these operations exceeded Japanese industrial capabilities completely. Each M1 Garand required 47 precision-machined components manufactured to tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch. American mass production techniques achieved quality standards that Japanese hand-fitting methods couldn't match, while producing rifles at rates impossible under traditional manufacturing. John Garand himself, the rifle's designer, visited Pacific combat zones to observe his weapons' performance. His technical report, filed with Springfield Armory in March 1944, noted reliability statistics that astounded military engineers. M1 rifles in jungle combat conditions demonstrate 99.97% mechanical reliability despite mud, humidity, and continuous use. Gas operation systems function properly with minimal maintenance using field-expedient cleaning materials. The Marshall Islands campaign in early 1944 provided the ultimate demonstration of M1 Garand tactical superiority. American forces, now equipped with over 100,000 Garands across Pacific theater units, faced Japanese defenders who had studied Guadalcanal and Tarawa lessons while attempting to develop counter-tactics. The Japanese response included increased emphasis on night attacks, infiltration tactics, and defensive positions designed to negate American firepower advantages. None proved effective against semi-automatic rifles that maintained high rates of fire regardless of tactical conditions. Colonel Kunio Nakagawa, commanding Japanese forces on Kwajalein, reported the futility of anti-Garand tactics in his final transmission. American semi-automatic rifles maintain effective fire in all conditions, day-night defensive offensive. Our tactical modifications cannot overcome their firepower advantage. Individual American soldiers possess automatic weapons capability that exceeds our squad-level firepower. The ammunition consumption during the Marshall Islands operations reached industrial scales that demonstrated American logistics supremacy. In 4 days of fighting, American forces expended 14.7 million rounds of .30-06 ammunition, more than Japanese forces fired during 6 months at Guadalcanal. This expenditure was sustained without supply shortages or rationing, clear evidence of industrial capacity that Japanese production couldn't approach. More devastating still was the training disparity that had emerged by 1944. American soldiers arriving in the Pacific possessed 200-plus hours of M1 Garand training, including advanced marksmanship, rapid-fire techniques, and combat reloading procedures. Japanese replacements received minimal ammunition for training due to production shortages, entering combat with theoretical knowledge but limited practical experience. Sergeant Ralph Rodriguez, training instructor at Camp Pendleton, documented American training standards. Every Marine fires 500 practice rounds with the M1 Garand before deployment, including rapid-fire exercises at various ranges. We emphasize volume fire over precision shooting. The psychological impact of sustained semi-automatic fire suppresses enemy response more effectively than individual marksmanship. The industrial mobilization supporting M1 Garand production had transformed American manufacturing capacity in ways that Japanese intelligence couldn't detect or counter. General Motors, Ford, and other civilian manufacturers had converted production lines to ammunition manufacturing, creating redundant supply chains that ensured continuous delivery regardless of enemy action. By mid-1944, American forces were receiving M1 Garands faster than Japanese forces could replace losses from all causes. The production rates, 2,000 rifles daily from all manufacturers combined, exceeded Japanese small arms production for their entire military across all theaters. Lieutenant General Holland Smith, commanding Pacific amphibious operations, summarized the strategic impact. The M1 Garand has given us tactical superiority that makes Japanese resistance futile regardless of their courage or defensive preparations. Semi-automatic fire destroys their ability to mass for counterattacks, while our sustained firepower eliminates their defensive advantages. The Japanese recognition of M1 Garand superiority led to desperate attempts at developing equivalent weapons, but their industrial capacity couldn't support mass production of semi-automatic rifles. The Type 4 rifle, Japan's answer to the Garand, remained in prototype development, while American factories armed millions of soldiers with proven weapons. The steamroller was unstoppable, powered by American industrial might and wielded by soldiers who possessed individual firepower that exceeded Japanese squad capabilities. Traditional infantry warfare was ending, crushed under the mathematical superiority of sustained semi-automatic fire. August 15, 1945. Atsugi Airfield, Japan. Colonel Ichiro Yamamoto, the same man who had confidently led the doomed banzai charge at Guadalcanal nearly 3 years earlier, stood among the remnants of his regiment as Emperor Hirohito's surrender broadcast crackled through the radio. Around him, scattered across the tarmac, lay the weapons that had failed to stop American victory, Type 38 and Type 99. Arisaka rifles, their bolt actions silent forever. The Americans possess weapons we could never match, Yamamoto admitted to his adjutant, Lieutenant Suzuki, as they watched the first American transport aircraft circle for landing. Not just the atomic bombs, but those rifles, every soldier armed with automatic fire. We brought swords to fight machine guns. In the aircraft approaching Atsugi sat members of the 11th Airborne Division, each man carrying an M1 Garand that represented the culmination of American industrial supremacy. By war's end, 5.4 million Garands had been manufactured, enough to arm every American soldier with semi-automatic firepower that exceeded Japanese squad-level capabilities. The final statistics told a story of systematic domination that mathematics made inevitable. American forces armed with M1 Garands had achieved kill ratios averaging 12:1 against Japanese infantry throughout the Pacific campaign. More significantly, traditional Japanese tactics had become not just ineffective, but suicidal when facing sustained semi-automatic fire. General Douglas MacArthur, preparing for the occupation of Japan, carried an M1 Garand as his personal weapon, a symbolic choice that reflected the rifle's role in American victory. In his final assessment of Pacific operations, MacArthur wrote, "The M1 Garand provided American infantry with firepower superiority that rendered Japanese tactical doctrine obsolete. Individual soldiers possessed automatic weapons capability that exceeded enemy squad strength. The human cost of Japanese small arms inferiority was documented in casualty statistics that revealed the mathematical impossibility of opposing M1 Garand-equipped forces. At Iwo Jima, 21,844 Japanese defenders armed with Arisaka rifles faced 70,000 Americans carrying Garands. Despite prepared positions and fanatical resistance, Japanese forces achieved only a 1.4.1 casualty ratio, catastrophic by Pacific War standards. Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kuribayashi, commanding Iwo Jima's defense, had recognized American firepower superiority in his final communications. Enemy infantry possess individual automatic weapons that negate our defensive advantages. Concentrated positions cannot be held against sustained semi-automatic fire. Traditional tactics result in systematic annihilation of defensive forces. The Okinawa campaign provided the ultimate demonstration of M1 Garand tactical dominance. Over 120,000 Japanese defenders, equipped with the best small arms Japanese industry could provide, faced American forces whose individual firepower exceeded Japanese automatic weapons. The result? 110,071 Japanese military deaths against 12,300 American combat fatalities, a 9.1 ratio that reflected technological superiority, not just numerical advantage. Colonel Hiromichi Yahara, senior staff officer for Japanese forces on Okinawa, survived to document the psychological impact of American semi-automatic fire. Our soldiers possess superior training and fighting spirit, but morale collapses under continuous automatic fire from individual American rifles. The sound of multiple Garands firing simultaneously creates panic that traditional discipline cannot overcome. The industrial comparison revealed why Japanese defeat was inevitable. By 1945, American factories were producing 6,000 M1 Garands daily, while Japanese small arms production had fallen to 200 rifles per day for all types combined. This 30.1 production advantage meant American losses could be replaced faster than Japanese forces could inflict casualties. More devastating still was the ammunition disparity. American plants produced 200 million rounds of 30-06 ammunition monthly by war's end, while Japanese factories struggled to manufacture 5 million rounds of all calibers combined. Each American soldier carried 80 rounds into combat with assured resupply, while Japanese infantry was limited to 30 rounds, with no guaranteed replacement. The technical superiority was equally overwhelming. The M1 Garand's gas-operated action functioned reliably in tropical conditions that disabled Japanese rifles. American semi-automatic fire maintained effectiveness regardless of weather, terrain, or tactical situation, while bolt-action rifles required manual operation that slowed rates of fire under all conditions. Master Sergeant John Basilone, Medal of Honor recipient who had fought with both Springfield rifles and M1 Garands, provided the definitive assessment before his death at Iwo Jima. The Garand makes every American soldier equivalent to a machine gun crew. Japanese soldiers, regardless of their courage, cannot advance against sustained semi-automatic fire from multiple rifles. Their tactics become impossible when facing our firepower. The psychological warfare value of the M1 Garand extended beyond tactical engagements to encompass complete demoralization of Japanese military doctrine. The distinctive ping of ejecting en-bloc clips became associated with American victory and Japanese defeat across every Pacific battlefield. Captain Robert Leckie, combat correspondent who witnessed M1 Garand operations throughout the Pacific campaign, documented the weapon's psychological impact. The sound of Garand's firing, that distinctive 8-shot rhythm, followed by the metallic ping, became the soundtrack of American victory. Japanese soldiers learned to associate that sound with inevitable defeat. The Japanese attempt to develop equivalent weapons demonstrated both recognition of American superiority and the impossibility of matching American industrial capacity. The Type 4 rifle, Japan's semi-automatic answer to the Garand, remained in limited prototype production when the war ended. Only 250 examples were manufactured compared to 5.4 million Garands. Engineer Colonel Kijiro Nambu, designer of Japanese automatic weapons, admitted the technological gap in post-war interviews. "We understood American semi-automatic rifle superiority by 1943, but our industrial capacity could not support mass production of equivalent weapons. Each Garand required manufacturing capabilities that exceeded our entire small arms industry." The strategic impact extended beyond individual engagements to encompass complete transformation of infantry warfare doctrine. American forces equipped with M1 Garands could execute tactical maneuvers impossible with bolt-action rifles, while Japanese forces found their proven tactics obsolete when facing sustained semi-automatic fire. General Curtis LeMay, analyzing Pacific ground operations for the Army Air Forces, concluded, "The M1 Garand provided American infantry with fire superiority that made Japanese resistance mathematically futile. Individual soldiers possessed firepower that exceeded Japanese squad capabilities, creating tactical advantages that no amount of training or courage could overcome." The production quality supporting M1 Garand operations had demonstrated American manufacturing superiority that Japanese industry couldn't approach. Each rifle met precision tolerances while being manufactured at rates that seemed impossible under traditional methods. The standardization allowed component interchangeability that simplified maintenance and repair under combat conditions. John Garand, the rifle's designer, visited Japan during the occupation to observe captured Japanese weapons. His technical assessment, filed with Springfield Armory in November 1945, noted fundamental differences in manufacturing philosophy. Japanese rifles represent excellent craftsmanship using traditional methods, but their production techniques cannot achieve the precision mass production necessary for modern warfare. Quality remains high, but quantity limitations make their weapons strategically irrelevant. The final irony emerged through post-war analysis of Japanese military assessments. Documents captured from Imperial General Headquarters revealed that Japanese commanders had understood M1 Garand superiority by early 1943, but lacked industrial capacity to develop effective countermeasures. Their military doctrine had been defeated not by superior tactics, but by overwhelming technological and industrial advantages. Emperor Hirohito himself referenced American technological superiority in his surrender broadcast, though he focused on atomic weapons rather than conventional arms. The enemy has begun to employ a new and most cruel bomb. Moreover, the general trends of the world have all turned against her interest. But the new and most cruel weapons included the 5.4 million M1 Garands that had made Japanese infantry tactics obsolete across every Pacific battlefield. Each rifle represented not just individual firepower, but the industrial civilization that could arm millions of soldiers with weapons that exceeded Japanese automatic weapons in effectiveness and reliability. Colonel Yamamoto, the same officer who had laughed at American heavy rifles in 1942, provided the final assessment during a 1947 interview with American military historians. We failed to understand that the M1 Garand represented not just a rifle, but an entire industrial system dedicated to victory. Each American soldier possessed firepower that exceeded our squad capabilities. We were defeated not by superior tactics, but by overwhelming technological advantage backed by unlimited production capacity. The M1 Garand had indeed proven to be, in General Patton's words, the greatest battle implement ever devised, not through individual superiority, but through systematic application of American industrial might that armed every soldier with semi-automatic firepower. The ping of ejecting en bloc clips had become the sound of victory, marking the end of an empire built on traditional infantry warfare. By August 15, 1945, the age of bolt-action rifles was over, crushed under the mathematical superiority of sustained semi-automatic fire delivered by American soldiers whose individual weapons exceeded Japanese squad-level capabilities. The M1 Garand hadn't just won battles, it had transformed warfare itself.